Hi everyone, welcome to our lesson today. We're going to look at lesson 15 in the workbook, and the big question in this one is, why did Jesus start saying that he had to die? Why was he so convinced about that? Now you can find the lesson in Google Classroom. If you go to the classwork tab, that's the easiest spot. For my class, it's under today's learning activity, the Mark workbook. So open the workbook like we normally do, and it's lesson 15. The easiest way to find that is to open the document outline and go to lesson 15. You can pause the video if you want while you get the workbook ready, and then keep playing the video. Now, starting in Mark chapter 8, after doing all these amazing things and miracles and showing that he was so powerful, Jesus started saying that he had to die. Have a look at what he said when Jesus says, when Peter realized he was God's special king. This is what happened. Then he began to teach them that it was necessary for the Son of Man to suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and scribes, be killed, and rise after 3 days. He spoke openly about this. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning around and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are not thinking about God's concerns, but human concerns." So Jesus knew he had to die. That's what he came to do. So where did he get that idea from? Well, the first thing we're going to do, question 1 in your workbook says, in your Bible, label each of the 3 occasions when Jesus told them he would die in Jerusalem and rise again. So there they are, Mark 8:31, 9:30 to 31, and 10:30 to 33 to 34, all have Jesus saying he had to die. So I want you to pause the video and in your Bible, underline each of those. Let's get rid of that. Underline each of those verses in your Bible so you can find them easily. When you finish, you can resume the video. Now, second question, why did Jesus think he had to die? Well, there were lots of prophecies that were written many years before Jesus came, and they talked about a special person who would come from God and who would suffer and die. And so you're going to look at one of the clearest of these prophecies, Isaiah chapter 53. We're going to read it together, and I've highlighted the parts that you can write in the answer space in your workbook. This is what the prophet said many hundreds of years before Jesus came. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of suffering who knew what sickness was. He was like someone people turned away from. He was despised and we didn't value him. Yet he himself bore our sicknesses and he carried our pains. But we in turn regarded him as stricken, struck down by God and afflicted. So the question is asking what the prophet taught would happen. And so you can write in the answer for question 2, he's despised and rejected by people. He carried our pains. He's struck down by God and afflicted. So you can pause the video while you write those down, and then we'll keep going through the prophecy. Okay, the prophecy keeps going. He was pierced because of our rebellion, crushed because of our iniquities. Punishment for our peace was on him, and we are healed by his wounds. That sounds like this person gets treated really badly to help us. We all went astray like sheep. We all have turned to our own way, and the Lord has punished him for the iniquity of us all. Iniquity means doing the wrong thing. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb led to the slaughter, and like a sheep silent before her shearers, he did not open his mouth. So you can pause the video again and write those yellow parts into your workbook. He was pierced because of our rebellion. The Lord has punished him for the wrongdoing of us all. It keeps going. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing. You could read it. But in here, it talks about he was struck because of the people's rebellions. He was buried, and that was God's will. And then it says, after his anguish, he will see light. It seems like after he's suffered and killed, he sees life again. So you can pause the video and write that. He was struck, and after his anguish or suffering or pain, he will see light. So pause the video if you need to and just finish putting those into question 2. The last thing, question 3, is just to help you think a little bit more about this. Some prophets said someone would come and die for the people. Other prophets said someone would come and rule forever as king. So how can that be? How can he die and rule forever as king? So the question is, how does the resurrection of Jesus solve the problem as to how Jesus could fulfill what the prophet said about each of these figures? How does the resurrection answer the problem? How can he die for the people and live forever as king? Well, the resurrection is the answer. So what can you write for question 3? The resurrection solves the problem because Jesus died first and then he came alive again to rule forever. So you can write that into question 3. Pause the video if you need to, and you can write, the resurrection solves the problem because Jesus died first and then he came alive again to rule forever. That's what we'll celebrate at Easter. And so what's this lesson all about? Why did Jesus have to die? And he knew from what the prophets had said that even though he was the king, he would have to suffer and die for the people to save them from what they had done wrong.